Beneath the calm Pacific waves lies a world swallowed by history. Warships that once thundered with power now sleep in eternal silence. Coral wraps around rusted cannons, like nature reclaiming its space. The sun's rays barely touch twisted decks, resting in cold darkness. Every rivet, every scar in the metal whispers a story of chaos and fear. Marine life swims freely through corridors once crowded by sailors. Time has turned engines of war into haunted cathedrals of steel. These ghost fleets are not ruins. They are chapters of a war that never truly ended. And we are about to dive into the secrets they protect. Once called the Gibraltar of the Pacific, Truk Lagoon was a fortress of Japanese dominance. Battleships, carriers, submarines, all gathered in these sheltered waters. Command centers buzzed day and night with plans to control the Pacific. Here, Japan believed they were untouchable, shielded by distance and secrecy. But that confidence became a fatal blind spot when the enemy finally struck. Today, crystal-clear currents glide through the bones of Japan's war machines. The seabed is littered with aircraft, fuel tanks, and shattered hulls. Truk has become a silent museum, a place where victory and tragedy lie side by side. Every wreck holds a final moment frozen in time. February 1944. Before sunrise, the sky filled with American warplanes. The attack was swift, relentless, and perfectly planned, a storm of steel and fire. Bombs pierced decks, torpedoes shredded hulls, turning the lagoon into a burning inferno. Sailors leapt into flaming waters, desperate for survival that never came. Explosions echoed for hours as ship after ship sank into darkness. The ocean floor became the new harbor, unwilling and merciless. Japan lost nearly half its Pacific strength in just 2 days. This moment marked the beginning of the end for their naval power. What lies underwater now is the aftermath of shock, fear, and defeat. Inside these wrecks, danger still lurks beneath layers of sand and rust. Torpedoes remain fully intact, deadly, patient, waiting for disturbance. Anti-aircraft cannons are frozen mid-aim, still pointing toward invisible enemies above. In ammunition rooms, shells lie stacked like forgotten promises of destruction. Gas tanks and bombs are ticking time capsules that divers move around cautiously. Engines sit ready, though they will never roar again. War left behind tools that nature cannot tame. Every dive is a reminder. Peace exists only on the surface. Below, the war continues in silence. Divers often speak of strange feelings, a heavy presence watching them. Helmets still lie beside human remains, the skeletons unmoved since their final breath. Objects like mess kits and shoes tell stories of routines abruptly shattered. Some report seeing shadows drift where sailors once worked and prayed. The silence feels alive, as if the ships remember every scream and explosion. These wrecks are not empty. They are tombs of men who never went home. Every compartment is a memorial carved by the sea itself. Perhaps those who died here still guard their last battlefield. Their duty, even in death, has not ended. Some ships fought until the very last second before surrendering to the ocean. Massive holes tore through armor plates, but they stayed afloat long enough to be remembered. Their final moments were battles against both enemies and the sea itself. Even as water rushed in, engines groaned, refusing to die quietly. The ship's flag may have burned, but its pride was never extinguished. Now, the wreck stands like a monument of courage lying across the seafloor. Fish swim through the very halls where commanders once gave orders. This battleship remains a warrior, silent, but undefeated by time. Warplanes rest inside hangars, wings folded like trapped birds. The controls remain in place, knobs, levers, even cracked gauges frozen mid-flight. Some pilot seats still hold the rusted outline of human remains. Propellers twisted by explosions show the violence of their final seconds. Sunken fighters stare upward, as if longing to return to the sky. Their engines will never again roar through clouds or chase enemies. But here, underwater, they are preserved like relics of a forgotten air war. Even in ruin, they still look ready to launch at a moment's notice. War echoes through them, even in silence. Japanese tanks rest on the seabed like abandoned beasts defeated in battle. Their thick armor is scarred by blast marks and shrapnel, proof of desperate struggle. Tracks are broken, turrets locked stiff, cannons pointing at nothing. Ocean currents now patrol where soldiers once rode into danger. Fish dart through the openings where young men once sat nervously gripping controls. These metal monsters once inspired fear. Now they inspire sadness. Saltwater slowly eats away their strength, but history refuses to let them vanish. Among weapons and engines lie items that reveal the human side of war. Teacups still sit on mess tables, cracked but untouched for decades. Letters home remain sealed in pockets of rust, words nobody will ever read. Shoes, helmets, and tools remind us that ordinary men lived extraordinary pain. Watches stopped ticking at the moment time ended for their owners. These artifacts speak louder than any weapon. War destroys more than armies. They hold memories, hopes, and lives cut tragically short. Every piece is a story. Every story is a wound history must remember. The last communications from these ships were filled with fear and urgency. Messages crackled through static as crews begged for reinforcements that never came. Operators stayed at their posts, sending signals even as ships took their dying breath. Some radios remain intact underwater, silent but symbolic of desperation. Their final words faded into the ocean, unheard, unanswered, forgotten. Yet if walls could speak, every wreck would scream its last call for help. This is where courage met hopelessness, and hope drowned. The ocean became both witness and judge of their final moments. The waves remember what the world tried to forget. Compasses and navigation tables still sit untouched inside control rooms. Charts remain pinned to the walls, showing the final uncompleted routes. Pencils lie exactly where trembling hands dropped them during chaos. The metal floors are dented by hurried footsteps that ended too soon. The sea has erased footsteps, but preserved the panic in stillness. Every room feels like its crew vanished only minutes ago. Navigation tools that once defined survival now mark a memorial. These ships knew where they were, but never reached where they were going. The bridge, once the heart of every order, is now a silent tomb. Broken glass floats beside rusted binoculars that once watched the horizon. The captain's wheel, locked in its final turn, tells of a last desperate maneuver. Maps flutter slightly with the ocean's breath, like ghosts trying to finish their mission. Control panels are covered in marine growth as nature writes over human ambition. Voices that once commanded now echo only in memory. This is where courage turned into tragedy within seconds. The bridge remains frozen in its final moment of hope. Before everything sank, deep inside the hull, the once thundering engine sits cold and hollow. Pistons and gears that powered war across oceans now sleep among coral. The generator room, once blazing with heat, is covered in icy silence. Grease cans and tools are scattered like evidence of interrupted repairs. It's as if the crew will return any moment to restart the heartbeat of the ship. But the ocean has taken over. Currents now move where steam once roared. The engine, a symbol of might, has become a monument to stillness. Power without purpose is just metal waiting to decay. Escape hatches, forced open, show the terror of a final struggle. Some were pried so hard, the steel bent but refused to grant freedom. Ladders lead up to exits that are now blocked by sand and coral. Sailors tried to outrun the water, but the ocean is always faster. Stray boots and helmets along the paths tell of panic in the dark. Every corridor is a race that ended without a winner. Nature has sealed the ship shut, trapping history within its ribs. The ocean decides what stories are revealed and which stay buried. Medical rooms hold the most painful silence of all. Stretcher frames lie twisted, with rusted surgical tools still in place. Medicine bottles float gently, labels fading like forgotten names. This is where the wounded took their last breaths, far from home. Doctors fought death with trembling hands as explosions shook the walls. Some patients survived the battle, only to drown in their sick beds. The ocean turned a place of healing into a grave. Even now, the room feels heavy with suffering that never left. Crates of bullets rest untouched, potential destruction never unleashed. They sit like teeth of a beast that never got to bite. Boxes stamped for urgent delivery now simply rot in silence. Mortar rounds and shells stare outward like blind eyes. If disturbed, they could still release fury decades after surrender. Divers know one wrong move could wake the sleeping enemy. Weapons meant for violence are now prisoners of their own fate. They waited for war and found only the sea. Guns remain pointed skyward, frozen in their final defense. Crewmen once fired desperately, watching the horizon fill with enemies. Shell casings still lie scattered at their feet, battle interrupted by death. Saltwater crust clings to gun barrels like tears of defeat. The view from the deck reveals only peaceful blue. Cruel irony. These weapons defended until they could fight no more. No soldier remains at the trigger. Only memory guards this position now. The sky is quiet, but the guns remember. Aircraft lie locked inside dark hangars, wings clipped by fate. Blueprints of missions that never flew scatter across the steel floor. Propellers are jammed with coral, as though nature refuses them flight. These planes were built to soar, but are buried alive under pressure. Rust dims the once bright insignias of a proud Air Force. The silence is so heavy, even fish move cautiously inside. Dreams of dominance now sit trapped in an underwater prison. The sea grounded them forever, without a single shot fired. Anti-torpedo nets lie torn and tangled, symbols of false safety. Defense cannons point uselessly at the seabed, defeated by gravity. Warships meant to protect the fleet now lie scattered as wrecks themselves. Steel plating, once impenetrable, is crumpled like paper by explosions. The protectors became victims before they even understood the threat. Coral reefs now shield what they could not save. The fleet's greatest guardians could not prevent a massacre. Even the strongest armor cannot protect against the unexpected. Burn marks streak across hulls like the ship cried molten tears. Oil still seeps into the sea, the wounds of war refusing to heal. Charred steel smells of the terror that once filled the air above. Explosions rip through compartments, turning metal into lightning. The sea hissed as fire rained from the sky in a deadly duel. These wrecks show a violent moment frozen forever beneath calm waves. Fire tried to destroy. Water completed its work. The ocean remembers every flame that once danced on its surface. Boxes of food are scattered across the seabed. Meals never eaten. Waterlogged crates hold uniforms that will never be worn. Barrels of fuel lie cracked, their contents robbed by the deep. Tools and spare parts. Mines rest patiently in the shadows beneath hulls. Some are still armed, their triggers crusted, yet intact. One wrong movement could unleash destruction decades after peace. Underwater crews approach with fear and respect. Death is still lurking. Nature disguises these killers with algae and coral camouflage. Many wrecks are dangerous to explore because the past can still explode. The ocean has turned safe rest into a ticking battleground. War's deadliest remnants remain ready for a war that never resumed. The sea has transformed destruction into breathtaking beauty. Coral blooms where men fell, painting the wrecks with colors of life. Fish weave through shattered hulls like caretakers of memory. Nature does not erase history, it heals around it. Predatory sharks patrol the wrecks like new guardians of the fallen. New ecosystems stand where battles once raged. These ships lost their purpose but gained a new one, to protect life they once threatened. A strange, powerful transformation from war to sanctuary. Signal rooms reveal the desperation of final contact attempts. Message tapes remain threaded, frozen mid-transmission. Operators stayed loyal to the last heartbeat of their ships. Static crackled with fading hope as water flooded the equipment. Tools lie smashed, possibly by sailors who refused to surrender silence. These radios were voices of fleets. Now they speak only to the deep. Their last words dissolved into bubbles, unheard, unanswered, lost. There is tragedy in every unreceived message. Signal rooms reveal the desperation of final contact attempts. Message tapes remain threaded, frozen mid-transmission. Operators stayed loyal to the last heartbeat of their ships. Static crackled with fading hope as water flooded the equipment. Tools lie smashed, possibly by sailors who refused to surrender silence. These radios were voices of fleets. Now they speak only to the deep. Their last words dissolved into bubbles, unheard, unanswered, lost. There is tragedy in every unreceived message. ... Torpedo rooms hold weapons ready to launch, missions planned but unattempted. Hydraulic doors are rusted shut, sealing intentions that died too soon. Crew bunks nearby remind us these rooms were always ready for conflict. Attack strategies lie forgotten in soggy manuals and peeling diagrams. The sea drowned both technology and ambition in one swift strike. These torpedoes would have shaped history. Now they only rust into memory. A war paused mid-breath, dreams silenced by water. Potential power lies buried, never unleashed. War rooms filled with maps and miniature ship models show the lost plans of Japan. Strategic drawings are slowly erased by saltwater's unforgiving touch. Commanders once believed they held every answer inside these walls. But the ocean had a question they could not solve: survival. These spaces are more haunting than battle scars. They show broken confidence. Every blueprint is a reminder that war punishes even the strongest minds. The future they planned now lies shattered beneath the sea. Strategy proved weak against fate. Transport ships carry an invisible army of souls beneath the waves. Bunks stacked tightly show how many lives were lost instantly. Personal tags and forgotten clothing reveal identities erased by the ocean. There was no glory here, only fear, chaos, and drowning darkness. Troop carriers became coffins faster than anyone could escape. Voices that once sang or laughed now echo as currents through metal corridors. These ships bear memories of young men who never saw battle. Their war ended before it even began. Inside aircraft wrecks, pilot helmets lie where they were dropped in panic. Some cockpits still hold skeletons, hands frozen on controls. These men trained for dogfights, but instead confronted death in darkness. The ocean became their runway and their grave. Their bravery is etched into every corroded rivet and shattered canopy. The sky lost its warriors before the battle even began. Their final view was not clouds, but floods of seawater swallowing light. Pilots never fear heights, but no one prepares for drowning. Flags that once symbolized empire now lie shredded and algae-covered. The colors of pride fade into the anonymity of the deep. National identity becomes meaningless when survival is lost. Even empires can sink, leaving behind no voice to defend them. History rewrites itself in silence, not celebration. The ocean cares nothing for borders or politics. It erases all. What remains is not victory or defeat, only memory. Flags turned into ghosts tell a humbling truth. No power is invincible. Sealed envelopes float inside drawers, ink still legible. Messages full of love, fear, and promises died with their writers. Some letters beg forgiveness. Others dream of future happiness. These words never reached the hands they were written for. Families waited for husbands, sons, and fathers who never returned. The sea became the keeper of their final confessions. Love survived war, but peace never brought them home. Every envelope is a broken connection that can never be mended. Small altars remain inside some ships, a final refuge for terrified hearts. Prayer books float softly, pages worn by trembling fingers. Candles that once flickered hope now sit cold under salt water. Faith battled fear inside these narrow rooms when explosions started. Some prayed for survival, others prayed for forgiveness. This was the only space where a soldier wasn't required to be strong. But even prayers drowned as the sea. Dozens of wristwatches stopped at the exact moment disaster struck. Metal bands still cling to skeletal wrists beneath layers of sand. Time ended mid-second for sailors who had dreams yet to live. Each frozen dial records the last heartbeat of a life. No clock has ever told a more tragic story than these. War turns minutes into destiny and seconds into fate. These watches still wait, but their owners never will. Time remembers, even when the world forgets. Rust crawls slowly across every surface, swallowing history inch by inch. Sharp edges soften, aggressive shapes melt into the seafloor. Time dismantles what humans worked tirelessly to build for war. Bolts loosen, hulls collapse, memories fade into coral dust. But the story remains as long as a single piece survives. Destruction meets decay, a duel that will never truly end. The sea is now the only historian left to witness this slow goodbye. Every bubble rising is a breath from the past. Some say the sea punishes arrogance and rewards humility. Warships that once terrorized coastlines now lie humbled in silence. The ocean claimed them without mercy, stripping away pride. Yet it also preserves them gently, guarding their stories. Their defeat became their immortality beneath the waves. The ocean is both executioner and curator of history. It hides truth, but never destroys it completely. These wrecks are verdicts written in rust. Divers often rise from these sites changed, haunted by what they saw. Some swear they felt cold hands brush past in dark corridors. Others heard tapping from inside cabins, as if someone still wants out. Equipment malfunctions mysteriously near the most tragic areas. These waters are heavy with emotion that refuses to fade. Human souls and ocean spirits coexist here uneasily. Not even death can silence those who died unprepared. The sea listens, and sometimes it speaks back. The men who fought here were not villains. They were human beings. Most were young, scared, and loyal to orders they didn't fully understand. Their courage deserves remembrance separate from politics. Regret often travels farther than war, reaching future generations. Families still mourn those who vanished with no graves to visit. Honor and tragedy lie intertwined in every shipwreck. These wrecks remind us that every side of war loses something precious. Bravery is universal, and so is grief. These fleets are underwater museums, holding artifacts untouched since 1944. Every camera that captures them becomes a historian of the sea. Researchers dive not just to explore, but to protect fading history. Currents erase evidence year after year, like time editing the past. Each expedition is a race against nature's silent destruction. What we learn now helps the world understand what war really costs. Knowledge rescued from the deep prevents our future from repeating its mistakes. The ocean stores truth, only if we dare to retrieve it. The Ghost Fleet does not merely rest, it evolves. Nature and history merge to form a world unlike any other. Steel bones create shelters for new life that never knew war. Divers bring breath and movement back into the silent decks. Stories rise like bubbles, floating to the surface to be told. These ships continue their journey, just in a different form. Their legacy survives not through battle, but through memory. Death beneath the sea is still a kind of life. The Pacific Ghost Fleet stands as a warning carved in rust and sorrow. War sank these ships, but arrogance, fear, and hatred push them here. Every wreck is a mirror reflecting the darkest parts of humanity. Yet remembering them can light the way toward peace. If we forget, history will rise again from the depths in a worse form. We honor the fallen by learning from the mistakes that killed them. Let these ships remain underwater, but let their stories rise. The ocean keeps the past, and we must keep the less.